ICS4U, this lesson is about action listeners within the context of this kilo converter project that we've been typing out and working on and getting to work. This is from the textbook. Unfortunately, you can't copy and paste from the textbook. I'm going to highly recommend that you actually type it out. Action listeners allow buttons to do something when we click on them. All right? And an event is an action that takes place within a program. Something like clicking a button in this case. We're clicking a button, it's going to convert kilometers to miles. When an event takes place, an event object is created for that event, and the source of the event is the button. So we're going to see this in a moment. So you can see that I've already taken the liberty of typing out the kilo converter example from the textbook. And I want to go over some key points in the code and also show you the three main steps of how we're going to implement an action listener in the future for whatever project we have. Okay, this is from page 779 in the textbook, I believe, and that's the Tony Gaddis textbook that we're looking at right now. So below our so what we're going to do is we're going to look at the top here. javax.swing.star allows us to do things, and if I highlight it, it'll tell me exactly what it is. It's the J-frame. So it allows us to make a panel and all the components inside of the panel, like the label, the J-text field, and the J-button. Okay, and the next line, java.awt.event, allows us to have action listeners. It allows us to use action listeners so that we can make actions happen or behaviors happen when we click on buttons and other things like that. We've also got sliders. We've got different components where you click on them or you enter text in them and something happens automatically. Okay, let's look at what happens in the... So we've got our constructor. In the constructor, we're just setting some parameters, some attributes. And we've got this build panel method. So let's look at the build panel method. Inside the build panel method, we do certain things. So we're creating our message label. We're creating our kilo text field, setting some stuff up. But we're attaching our action listener to our button. So we've got a button called calc button, and we defined it up here, JButton called calc button. And we're attaching our action listener that's called calc button listener. So now if we go down to our class for calc button listener, we can see the code for that. So here's our calc button listener. It implements action listener. And we set up our conversion rate for kilometers to miles. We set up our input string and our double called miles. That's our parameter. And we're getting the value of the kilometers in our text field. And we're calculating what the miles are based on the conversion. Finally, we have a pop-up. It's a show message dialog that shows what the result is. So it shows the conversion. What I've done is at the end of each curly brace, I've put I've described the end of, so this is the end of the action performed. This is a really useful thing to do, especially if your code spans more than one page. See, this is all within the curly braces, the starting and ending for the action performed are all on the same page. It's easy to see that, so you just have to click on it and it'll show you where it starts. But for example, the kilo converter class, if I click on that, IntelliJ is smart enough to know that it is the kilo converter class, and it shows me that. But it's also very useful just to see it at a glance, so I'm going to recommend that you put comments at the end of your end curly braces just to show what the end of each thing is. Okay, last thing, I want to just summarize the 3 steps that you need to do when you're handling events with an action listener. So step 1, you're writing an action listener class. So that's the calc button listener. So here's our action listener class, and we're telling it to implement action listener. That's step 1. Step 2 is to create an object from this class. And we create that object up above actually we create it in a separate class called tester. So I created a new class called tester. It's my main method, and this is where I create my new kilo converter object. So from the kilo converter class, I create a new object called myConverter, and that's all you need to run this project. You'll notice if you just run the kilo converter code on its own, nothing happens, and that's because you have to instantiate or create a new object from the kilo converter class. So I've chosen to do that in a new tester class. You could also make your main method at the bottom here, but I'd recommend doing it inside of your tester or testing class or whatever you want to call it. So that's step 2. And then step 3 is within your kilo converter class, you are connecting the action listener object with the JButton component. So this is where we, up here, this line right here. So we're doing calc_button.add action listener. We're attaching the action listener to the button. And you can see I put a comment there. Attach the action listener to the JButton component. Those are the 3 steps that you need in order to handle main steps to handling events with an action listener. There's going to be a document to go along with this that shows a summary of all those steps. Things can get fairly complicated, but this is object-oriented programming, and Unit 2 prepared you for this. So now we're going to be in upcoming classes, we're going to be trying to use what we learned here to make projects of our own using JButtons and maybe some other objects as well, and putting some actions into those. So that's the end of this this lesson. Be sure to look at the action listeners document. It's like a companion document to this lesson. That's it for now.